where you're like, you know what, I'll just kick that can down the road. But you can't do that in December. No, because literally the government will like come after you. All right. Well, welcome to the Nick's Boots from Start to Finish podcast. I'm your host, Shuyler Mao, joined here by Lucas Grassberger, product marketing manager, Rebecca Burnham, operations manager, and Kelsey Lursbach, head of media. I do know your title, but I like head of media better. But yeah, welcome, guys. We're here to kind of reflect a little bit and recap, talk about 2024 and maybe even a little bit about 2025. It was an interesting year. I think it was a growing year. Definitely not quite as frothy as maybe 2020 to 2023, but we did do some nice things. We did grow both, I think, professionally, spiritually, and most importantly, financially. So that was good. But yeah, I think we've got some interesting things on tap for 2025. I think 2024 was a good learning experience for us. Yeah. Rebecca, how did you feel about 2024?
It was a lot. I feel like a lot happened in 2024. There was something the other day where I was like, didn't we just do that? But it was actually a year ago. Oh, our ISO audit.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, didn't we just finish that? But no, we have to prep for it again.
Yep.
Yeah, so the ISO audit is like So unlike some of our competition, we do actually go through the ISO audit for NFPA certification, where we are on site. One, we have to send in the boots for testing, so for fire resistance, durability, puncture resistance, et cetera. But then we do actually have an on-site auditor who basically goes through all of our processes, corrective action plans, our documentation. It's quite exhaustive, actually, and takes quite a bit of time, and it's kind of quite expensive, to be honest. These guys, they only stay at the finest hotels, so you have to put them at the Coeur d'Alene Resort or something. I'm just joking, but Holiday Inn usually works. But Holiday Inn's a little more expensive than it used to be, I'll tell you that. But yeah, no. So these guys come in and they basically audit our business and make sure that we're not doing anything kind of out of standard, and are documenting things in a way that essentially result in continuous improvement. So I think that's probably the main thing they're kind of looking for. Mm-hmm. But it's really all about are our processes sound, and do we actually know what's happening? And can we prove that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? So it was a lot. We've got a lot going on. We had a lot that happened.
Yeah.
Any other kind of highlights or lowlights you wanted to?
2024 feels like the pendulum has gone from this to sort of this, but there's a lot happening in that little bit of movement. So I feel like we're finding our stride in internal systems, which I think is setting up 2025 really well to grow a little bit more, and maybe see some better things for customers on the customer service side, the product side, quality side. But finding that stride has been tricky.
Yeah, I mean, we've struggled in some areas. I think especially customer service response times. We've seen contacts increase, and also, and kind of from an efficiency standpoint, contacts per order has increased, and I think that's somewhat on, as a result of us pursuing kind of this customization path, but also community growth and kind of people coming to see us as accessible and kind of approachable. But I was very gratified to see, I feel like we finally are getting a handle on the phone response times and abandon rates and that sort of thing. And so next step is kind of emails. And so we have made progress on that. I was talking to Rebecca and her team. And so hopefully we can be at 24 hours by the end of this week. There's probably going to get bounced around a little bit over the holidays with,
right,
people out, but hopefully we can enter January with sound 24-hour response times and kind of both main contact mediums.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us in 2025. Lucas, anything you want to
Yeah, I mean, it was
highlight?
It was our 60th anniversary.
True.
Which for some reason that feels like it was 3 years ago, doing that whole celebration and
That's true.
everything. Like Becca said, a lot happened this year. It's funny, I was watching when we did this podcast a year ago, we talked about 2024 possibly being a little bit of refinement year for us, which I think it definitely was. A lot of things we got better at, from a customer service, operations, from product standpoint. I mean, Western boots and a lot of other products that we needed to hone in on, take our time and get those right and get them out to customers. And now we're making them, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're, I can say without a doubt, the best Western boot I've ever put on my feet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great product. And so we're continuing to kind of build out that capacity to build more. But I think we are staying disciplined, and we're like only selling as many as we can make, within a monthly period. So we don't get in kind of the same situation we did. In the past, we would launch things and kind of try and figure it out. And then like as the things we were launching got harder and harder, we took us longer to figure them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not doing that anymore. I haven't done it in a while, but I've talked about it a little bit. But it's like production debt or kind of launch debt or tech debt. Like if anyone has worked at a software company or anything like that, you're scaling, but you have not kind of put in place the systems to allow your systems to actually grow. And so you're developing lots of workarounds. And I think we've spent a lot of time kind of trying to address that this year. And we'll be spending more time in the first half of next year, I think, really solidifying that as well and kind of position us for this kind of like next phase of the business.
I think we did a lot this year to kind of set us up for success in the future for new products.
Yeah, I mean, the renovation was a huge part of that.
Oh, yeah.
And shout out to Raycon Construction. That went so much better than I think everyone expected.
Yeah.
Was it like
Did a great job.
3 months?
Yeah, it was about 3 months, almost exactly 3 months. When we went into it, we were thinking that maybe there'd be some days of downtime, because we were doing some electrical work and there was going to be like some significant switchover issues, but they were able to accomplish that without any. We had some reduced capacity days, basically for moving things around into their new locations, but other than that, I mean, it went pretty well.
And there was really only one day I can think of that was disruptive to the customer service side of things.
Right. Yep.
Like other than that, it was operating as normal.
Yeah, and that was that was kind of funny. Walked in, they're basically using a Sawzall on like the steel studs, and I was like, okay, we're gonna move the customer service team into the conference room. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting year. Yeah, the renovation was a big deal. I think the Western boot getting finalized and kind of being like what we envisioned it being. Brandle getting out the door finally, in some capacity. The Chore boot.
Yeah.
That was a 2024
the Chore boot
model.
we launched this year. Tanker Pro revision.
Yep. So
happened this
improving some
year.
patterns, which we'll continue to do. The pattern improvement is not really. On the Tanker Pro, I think it is an exception in that it was visible to the customer. We are looking at some pattern revisions that the customer, you're not really going to care. It's a lot more to like streamline or make sewing or like the production process more efficient, as well as literally to make them easier to get out of the last jack, like the lasts on the last jacks. That is actually kind of a challenge for us with some of our pull-ons, especially, and especially as we're selling more and more of the Therman lasts, just because of that wider shape is a little less wieldy. Anything else you wanted to talk about? Any tough challenges we overcame? I mean, the ISO audit, I think, is a good example of that. That was the first time I think we actually. Oh, it's an interesting Well, COVID like totally threw a wrench into that whole process, and so for a couple years we would have a guy just calling in, on a video screen, which I think makes it very difficult for them to actually audit you. So, while I'm not saying we weren't doing this stuff, I mean we were, but it just wasn't as intensive, you know what I mean? And so this year was the first year where we had an on-site auditor for quite a while.
they weren't really like checking our work when we were sending them the stuff to say
Right.
like this
Yeah.
is what we improved on and here's our numbers.
Well, and
Whereas-
even polling random employees,
Yeah.
asking them questions about the business,
Right.
making sure everybody understands
Right.
what we're doing here and what our standards are. Yeah, I was really proud of our team
Yep.
after the audit.
We created a kind of the beginnings of a QC
Mhm.
process and department, I would say, formally, you know,
Right.
like we put in the QC tickets so we can track, you know, everybody who worked on the boot. We have a leather inspection process now. We've got, you know, obviously sign off at final boot completion as well. We're tracking, I think, more effectively and more granularly, like the reasons that, you know, we're experiencing issues and addressing them. So that was, again, kind of in line with this. Like, yeah, it's a bit of a refinement and kind of preparation for future
Mhm.
in terms of process improvement. So that was gratifying to see as well, for sure.
I think a lot of these things, they were all happening before, but it was pretty disjointed. Like it was one person inspecting leather when it came in. He knew what was happening, but
Right.
that didn't really ever make it to anybody else. So it's been a lot of getting individuals that are doing things on the same page and creating systems and infrastructure for everybody to have access to that information. So
Yeah.
another big thing is I think just our product offerings are a lot more concise and clear, and our customer service team knows I can't put this with this for this reason. Whereas in the past, that's been a lot of, I don't know, let me go talk
Yeah.
to 3 people and I'll find out.
A lot of kind of tribal
Yeah.
knowledge, whereas now we're like actually putting in systems to like document things, why things got rejected, why we can't use this leather, why you can't put these two things together. Yeah, so that everyone has the information.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of good stuff happened this year. Yeah, I mean, we surpassed the 10,000 mark and actually are at 11,000 mark on our Reddit community, which is really cool. You know, I think that's been an important avenue for us in terms of customer interaction and kind of learning about the product. Kelsey, anything on the media front? YouTube, or I think we did have a milestone. I remember I got a plaque. Something about 250 million views or something.
Oh, yeah, I think we did hit.
Sorry, did you say million or billion?
1 billion.
Wow.
Cumulatively, yeah. 250 million views.
That sounds right.
Wow.
Well, I think one thing about
That's
Nix is
insane.
clear. We do really celebrate success.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, so we did that. So that was pretty cool to see. Yeah, I mean, obviously our, you know, that organic content creation has been a big part of, you know, who we are and how we get the word out. So Kelsey, great job there. I think this has been another year where like you just didn't have you know, we had some headwinds, frankly, like platform changes, frankly, probably some duplicative competitor content out there. And so we I think did a nice job pivoting on that and coming up with some new formats and new content ideas. And so I'm very gratified to see us kind of like in a positive trend there kind of year over year, which is cool. And I know that took a lot of work. So thank you for that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a crazy number. It's a lot.
It's a lot of people.
Well, you know, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I don't want to get into it too much. YouTube is pretty public. You know, there's trackers out there that can tell people that. But yeah, some of the numbers on some of our other things that are maybe less public are kind of wild. That Reddit recap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many visitors and all
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
So it's very gratifying to see, and I think kind of obviously a very important part of us kind of heading into 2025. So yeah, so overall, I would say nothing. I mean, there were some major accomplishments, but it wasn't quite as maybe some of the more radical things that happened in like 2020 to 2023. I don't know that we entered into completely new markets and that sort of thing, but a lot of hard refinements and kind of improvements, and I think just stuff that we kind of had to do to be able to kind of take that next step. So that was cool to see. Yeah. So you're going to be seeing some interesting things from us in 2025 on the systems side, but on the systems side, we had the change window, which I think is finally ironed out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We may change it again, but
yeah. Cool. Yeah,
but
I mean,
for the benefit of a customer.
okay. Good. Yeah, so these are all kind of experiments. I think we've done some changes here recently that I don't know are going to be set in stone. I would say like the way that we've configured some of this like additional customization is probably not the way that it'll end up. So bear with us. We're kind of like trying to figure out some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I do think we need to capture value for some of these additional customizations, but I do think there could potentially be some tweaks there. Yeah, the change window I think is another example. It puts so much pressure on the leather arriving on time.
Yes.
That, in my opinion, it may be a little unwieldy the way that it's currently constructed, especially given the reliability from a delivery standpoint of our tannery partners.
Correct.
Which is not great.
Yeah, that's one of the changes I was considering. So recently we got our shipment of 64 brown, just like we planned. Everything was going to be fine, but then literally all of it we had to send back.
Well, we didn't send it all back. We basically got a credit on it because we were only going to get half the yield on it that we were expecting.
But initially we looked at it and we're like, we're not going to be able to use this the way we need.
Yep.
So that created an issue. So we contacted some customers that we had plenty of leather of and just said, do you want us to put your order in? Because now all these other orders have to wait. So one thing I've considered for 2025 is if we just give customers the option of like, yes, you can start my order whenever you want. I'm not going to have any changes, or I might have changes. Please let me know before you start my order. So that way we're not holding up customers that are like, no, I'm good to go. You can put me in whenever. Because we've also gotten some more accurate data, I think, on what kinds of changes customers make, how many changes they make, when they make those changes. So all of that is helping kind of inform that process. But I think it's actually a smaller percentage of customers than we thought that have changes.
Yeah, it's a smaller percentage who make a ton of changes.
Well, even just changes in general, it's usually like first-time customers that might change the size. But once they know their size, they really don't have changes after that. So I think we can fine-tune the processes a little bit so people who are like, nope, I know what I want, don't have any changes, could potentially even get a little bit of a faster lead time.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also done, we've basically got a dedicated purchasing system and person now, right? Like this used to be done very, I don't know about off the cuff, but one, the business was not quite as complicated from an inventory management standpoint, but it was kind of a mixture of a couple different people ordering in what they needed. And now that's kind of running through one single lens and we're tracking it more accurately. So that's a big improvement. We're tracking yields more accurately. We're getting measurement tools in place to basically evaluate like temper and thickness and that sort of thing, when the leather comes in, to make sure that it's up to spec. So a lot of this stuff, I don't know, it sounds easy, it sounds intuitive, but one, I think we're not that big. We're not that big of a company. You know what I mean? We have, 70 people, but like 50 of them are making things, right? And then 14 of them are answering phones and emails and shipping things. So, we don't have a lot of free capacity for some of these necessary but time intensive and, mentally intensive tasks.
Well, and even just the nature of leather, like the last couple months, it's like I'm learning all over again that leather is not an easy material.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think it's a combination. So you're right. Leather is not an easy material. I think, but this year in particular has been pretty challenging. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. One, been some new regulations from a chemical standpoint and what's allowed to be used in tanning leather. And I think that has been an adjustment period for the tanneries. Not necessarily that it's worse chemically or anything like that. I think literally figuring out what the new formula is, right? The other one, which is a little more concerning, right, is there was a huge drought in the Midwest this year. And the U.S. cattle herd got to one of its lowest points that it has been in basically, I think, since the 80s.
Wow.
So that reduced essentially the raw material supply of the leather, which obviously reduced the amount to pick from, which means you maybe can't be quite as choosy when you're at the tannery level. And so, those two things I think really made it a more challenging year for leather tanning. And then also, frankly, we have been what's known as an easy receiver for a really long time, where we would just kind of make it work. The two factors that I mentioned, the drought and the chemicals, I think forced our hand essentially to be like, we cannot make this work. This is literally just costing us too much money. And so we started sending stuff back. And that has also, I think, I've noticed has started to have a positive effect on kind of what we're getting. So just more vigilance on our part and making sure that what we're getting is kind of up to standard. So yeah, it's been it reminds me of 2020 a little bit. I think we were small enough in 2020 that it didn't have a huge impact, but it was tough in that respect. It's going to be expensive from a material standpoint this year. So hopefully we can kind of get that under control. We have to get that under control, and we will. All right, let's talk a little 2025. We've got, I think it's going to be a great year. I think it's going to be a big year. My hope is to get more sophisticated on the operations side, to get more sophisticated on the marketing side, and get more sophisticated with our customer service. So those are kind of like the three legs of the stool. We've got a couple initiatives that I think we'll be launching here that I think people will be pretty excited about. And I think there's some stuff that I think will be, change. Change is hard. But, we've got to keep kind of moving forward here. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that. We've actually got some people in here we're talking to for, some leadership roles on the marketing side and kind of direct to consumer leadership. So I think that'll be a big step for us next year. I think you'll see more self-serve options from a customer service management. Like I'd love to have, what if you could just change your order yourself, and play with it. I think that's something we'll be looking at. Returns, I think we can make a lot more seamless as well. So, our number one priority is that customer experience. And so that will continue to improve. Again, I think we're getting the service levels more in line with expectations. But I think from a technology standpoint, there's some things we can implement to do that. So you'll actually be seeing a website platform change from us in the next basically 3 to 4 months or so, which I think will add significantly to our capabilities for next year and kind of eliminate a lot of the quirks of our current system.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. It's also a fraught process, so let's be aware that,
it's
not always smooth and easy.
But it's not smooth and easy now, so.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel like I sometimes see comments about, and this has honestly even happened with like employees. It's like, why are we so focused on growth and why are we so focused on expansion? And it's not for the sake of growth and expansion itself. It's frankly not even necessarily about like personal money. It's like, I always ask people then like, well, where would you rather work? A place that's growing where you're going to have career progression, possibilities, or a place that's like content and complacent and kind of likes where they're at. It's a lifestyle business, it's basically pretty chill. And we want people who want to work at a growing business where they can advance their careers. And I think we have a lot of those people, and I, as a leader, owe it to those people to surround them with people of a similar mindset so that they can accomplish their goals. They can buy a house. They can send their kids to college. They can pay for daycare. Like all these things that have gotten so much more expensive in the past 5 to 10 years. I feel a pressure to provide an environment that can meet those needs. And so with that in mind, we hope to continue to grow. And so we put in place things that help us do that, which means change, right? And which can mean churn and froth and not always going smoothly.
Sure.
And so I don't know. That's going to be a priority for 2025, as it always is. But I think 2025 will be a big year for us in that respect. We've put in place a lot of the infrastructure like we've talked about in 2024, the renovation, we'll have the new website, some new hires coming on, and I think it's going to be, it's going to be a great year.
Yeah.
Possible products that you might see. Gosh, I don't know if we can talk about them.
I don't know.
A lot of people will be racing to get them to market
Right.
first, you know?
I I know that is always an interesting thing with how we kind of conduct ourselves, right? We talk about so many things we're doing, and then we turn around and see someone else is also doing them all of a sudden. But I mean, Chukka, I feel like we can talk about that.
Yeah,
seeing
Chuck
as
will be out soon.
That's coming through, and I've talked about it before on other podcasts. I know me and Aldert have talked about it when we did our Cobbler with Cobbler. That was like 2 years ago.
That was a long time ago.
And we're finally like putting it together and doing it. So one's going through production right now. I think we'll make some fine tuning to the patterning just for aesthetic purposes. But yeah, that should be coming out soon.
It kind of like we've always struggled. Summer's always a kind of a tough month for us, or tough series of months for us. And so, short of making a flip flop,
Why not?
Well, that was next on my list.
Okay. It is funny. I do have Trent and Heath made that flip flop with the
Red X.
Red Excel. Yeah, that was funny. No, but short of that, I think hopefully these chukkas and things like that can provide an option for people to wear during the summer period and kind of smooth out our sales cycle a little bit and our production cycle. So that's part of it. Yeah, I think it'll definitely be one of the best chukkas on the market, if not the best. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a couple other things in a similar vein, a little bit shorter, lighter weight, something for the summertime. I don't know how much you want to reveal. That's everything we're going to reveal.
Yeah. Well, no, we've got some big things coming. Yeah. So, and we'll get. I know we focused on transparency, but they're not fully cooked yet. So they're possible. I think we've got proofs of concept on them, but I do want to kind of make sure we have that ready to go. Sure. In January, you're going to see, I think, a very interesting new leather from Nick's.
Oh yeah, a few new leathers.
Yeah. It's going to be, I think, a little controversial, especially with what we're going to call it. But it's something we've developed with Horween. It's, I think, what?
What's controversial about it?
Because we're putting our flag down,
putting the flag in the ground.
Yeah,
putting the flag on the logo.
Some may say we haven't earned, or don't have
the right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But anyway, I think it's going to be a really interesting leather.
It's awesome.
It's awesome.
They're almost done in production right now, and it's gotten better as it's moved through production.
Yes. It's a versatile leather. I think it celebrates kind of the product mix that we have, the heritage, the work. I've talked to Horween about this. We might be one of the biggest sellers of wax flesh out there. I think there's part of that, but that's not the only element of it, which I think is what's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. Very versatile.
Yeah. So we've got this new series of leathers. We're going to make a big deal out of it. That'll be January. I think kind of starting the year off with a bang. Very excited to be getting that out there. And I think people who are a big fan of our style of boots will love it. And I think it will offer a entry point for people who are maybe, new to the ecosystem and new to the P&W scene. Yeah. That's going to be pretty sick. So I'm excited about that. We've got a lot of other stuff coming, and we'll kind of keep you posted on that as that pops along. This was kind of a long one, so I think I'll ask, around the table, anything you guys want to add before we sign off?
I think in general this year, it feels like, this might just be me personally, but I feel like our team has I feel a lot more cohesive. I feel like we've kind of figured each other out a little bit more. Things are running smoothly a little bit more, especially with production and this side of the building and getting together. We used to have a literal wall in between the two departments.
I only had to bribe production with $500,000 in renovations, but yeah, absolutely.
But no, I feel like things just move a little bit smoother now, which has been nice.
Yes.
I was going to say something similar. It feels.
Is that because Rebecca's gone?
Could be. Maybe I'm the problem.
You just dropped a bomb. I think that's the first time we talked about
her hybrid role.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That was a big change for me. But in general, I feel like the last few years, it's been a lot of catching up to what other companies are doing, catching up to what other departments are doing, catching up to what conversations happened in the last 15 minutes that I missed that I need to know about. But it feels like we're all kind of at the same starting point now. So we have a lot of freedom to decide, like, where do we want to go and what do we want to do instead of figuring out what happened 2 days ago.
That's a good point. And I think very clearly other companies are reacting to us. And for many years, we were reacting to other companies. And that will always be my goal. Make your competitors react to you. Yeah. And that will be, I think, the theme of 2025.
Yeah. I think it's interesting in like 2020, around that time, a lot of customers would talk about like, oh, we were kind of the underdogs.
Yeah.
Whereas like there's other companies people knew about and we were kind of the new name. And where it's shifted now, where I talk to a lot of customers who have heard about us, but not those other names.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Well, that's thanks to Kelsey.
You're welcome. You're welcome, world. You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'll sum it up. It was not an easy year. There were some challenges. There were some travails. There were some failures. But overall, I think we've set ourselves up for a good position, in a good position for 2025. And a big thank you to our customers. We couldn't do this without you, obviously, right? A business is nothing without its customers. And we appreciate you for hanging with us as we've worked through some of these issues. It is getting better. It will be better next year. I'm especially talking about some of the service level issues. But, when you try new things, you run the risks, right? Yep. And I think that's kind of where we're at. Now we'll definitely take some steps, I think, to make sure that we're better positioned and know more as we continue to take these risks. But we're going to push the envelope and we'll kind of see where it takes us, man. 2025 is going to be an interesting year.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. And to everyone listening, we really appreciate your time. For Shuyler, Mal, Lucas, Rebecca, Kelsey, we're signing off. You know where to find us if you have any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you next year.
Bye. You have to do your strategic planning for the next year. You have to do your budgeting for next year.
Reviews.
You have to do reviews. It's terrible, So give me like July, where you're like, you know what? I'll just kick that can down the road. But you can't do that in December. No, because literally the government will like come after you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that got so serious. But yeah, I feel that.
It's not even going to make it in. All my answers don't make it into the B-rolls.
That's going to be the.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be the cold open. Okay, Lucas.
I don't know what you're talking about. Christmas being a childish holiday. Every Christmas,
it's for up to 7-year-old people.